Good morning. Um, Waiting on David to make sure my audio is working well. I hope everyone is having a great Thursday. It's raining here, not my favorite thing. So I've been staying inside because I know you all have seen my hair and have figured out that my hair is natural. And I straightened it yesterday, and rain make it go poof. The rain. That's my girl talk for now. And there is Elder David Hall.
Hey, how we doing, Marvin? How we doing?
I am awesome. Can you hear me well? My
I hear
audio's
you
good?
good. Audio's good today.
All right. So, our topic for today
Our topic for today.
is generational and cultural influences on femininity.
Mm, mm, mm.
Now,
Generational and cultural influences on femininity.
Now, I want y'all to know if you all didn't see last week, David is the one that picked this topic. He's actually picked the last two or three because that's what alphas do. They just declare what we're going to do. Um, so, just going to put that out there. Just throw that out in the water.
Um, much more. What do you call it? Controversial. So
Controversial?
I'm excited about it. Yeah, I'm excited. I think today's going to be a good discussion.
Okay, so let me go ahead. Can I go ahead and just go ahead and get to the controversial?
Let's do it.
Just go ahead and jump in.
Just
Okay,
jump in.
so I think we as Americans,
Uh huh.
as Christians,
Uh
are
huh.
guilty of reading the Bible through a European Western lens
Okay.
and not a Afrocentric lens.
Which would make what difference on femininity and masculinity? But go ahead,
Which what? What'd you say?
go ahead. I'll ask that in a second.
Okay. So I'm going straight for it.
Uh huh.
So a lot of what has been defined as the matriarchal society, if you will, of Afrocentric culture
Mm-hmm.
has to do with the perception of how men and women cooperate in within the family. And because it is different from the Western model, which we as Americans seem to be more familiar with than the Afrocentric, it seems very disorienting for us because we have been, if you will, assimilated into a different mind frame about how to deal with relationships. But I want to take it to task because one of the things that actually happens in the Afrocentric model is an understanding of how the unit functions, which is very different from the Western model. And so it has been tagged as matriarchal. When in truth, yes, it is matriarchal, but not in the ways of the negative perception that we have been given. And
Okay.
it changes how we read the text. It completely changes how we read the text. Because if we read the text through a Western lens, we don't see the cooperation that happens in the matriarchal culture. And but when we read it, it gives you a better understanding of how situations like Jezebel and Ahab happened because
Okay.
you're wondering how does this woman have this much influence. The argument that I will make is that most women within that culture had influence. They used their influence differently, and that is the context that we miss.
Okay. So where do I start my rebuttal? Let's start at the last point.
Go wherever you like going.
All right. So first of all, uh, no matter how we read the Bible, it wasn't written from a Western standpoint.
It never.
All right. Okay.
They
So
it maybe edited at
but
places.
not even redacted from a Western standpoint. The
Okay,
original the original
fair enough.
redactions all done in what they would call the Near East, or and most redactions done uh, in right around 1000 BC, the time of David and Solomon. And the second set of the last set of redactions done right around 567, 570
Okay,
in the time of
now
Ezra.
you're
Let me
using the word redaction,
well
and you and I
editing.
know what that means.
Okay,
Okay,
editing. But I don't.
okay.
It's right. I don't want to get lost in the jargon. The point is to say that this concept of because we read it a particular way, it affects how it was written. Um, Jezebel is a character that is written from a distinct perspective, and she's a problem, not because of Western reading or Eastern writing. She's
She's
a
a
problem
problem
because she's a problem,
because she's a problem.
and she's pointed out because she is a problem. There are plenty of women in the text that have influence, and then plenty of women that make bad decisions, but none of them are seen as a problem. I mean, there's not a single woman who makes a bad decision that's sentenced to death except one. Well, actually two. There was that one woman who took over the kingdom for a minute when they hid the king, when they hid the king's son
Did the baby?
in the
Did she?
temple,
The nurse
and she
wasn't she the nurse or something?
something like that. She killed all the kids and everything. There's her, but she's not a very famous person in the text, so nobody really knows anything about her. I think her name is Attilia, or Athelia, or something like that,
Yeah,
in the book of
something.
second book of Second
I would have
Kings.
to look it up.
But the point is, Jezebel's a problem. She's a foreigner, and she is imposing herself on Ahab, and she also happens to be around right at the time when the first prophet shows up. So, let's not use that as kind of our linchpin, and the concept of the way we read it doesn't affect the way it is written. I think that's the biggest thing. The next thing is this whole idea that culture is a natural phenomenon passed on uh, through some type of bloodline. Is kind of the problem that's really hurting us, because this whole idea that, well, in Africa we had matriarchal societies, and now we're in America, and we ain't been in Africa for many years.
Many, many,
Yeah,
many,
yeah,
many.
yeah. So I mean,
But now I will say this: I think we still retain up until probably the last generation. I think we still retained quite a bit of Afrocentric in the Black family. I
I would,
really do.
I would make the argument that we don't retain a bit of it. And we have,
I would.
and
I would.
let me tell you why. Because the larger Black community doesn't even resemble in the least bit the Geechee community in South Carolina.
Oh, well, maybe
Which,
that's the difference because well, never mind.
well, I mean,
Go ahead.
let me finish, because what I'm saying is, we do have a control for this thought experiment. That is,
Okay.
The Geechee community in the islands of South Carolina are pretty close, to whatever extent, to some sort of of African diaspora, or authentic Africanness in the diaspora, and
I,
they are not African per se, and we don't resemble anything like them by and large. They have their
well,
own
okay, so
language.
I'm gonna have to take you to task on that one
Go for it.
because number one, I probably have spent more time than you around the diaspora.
Whatever that
That's
means.
that's just how I roll. Well, because I have I have friends that are um Afro Hispanic, and I've worked with refugees from Africa.
So, are you going to tell me that the refugees from Africa resemble in any way Afro Hispanics?
Yeah,
I'm not,
yeah.
I'm not talking about
If
from
you
Brazil.
No, 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 no. I
Okay.
very much and what you will find is the measure or the ways, if you will, that they still resemble have a lot to do with what country colonized in that area.
Okay.
So If you go to um, if you go to say Colombia
Right.
or Brazil,
Right.
you're going to find very different types of Afrocentric, but you're still going to hear the drums. You're still going to know that there's an African influence, but when you go into the table, into the family context, that's when you really will kind of see what's still there, what's not still there. Because even when they come to this country, if you get invited to dinner, you'll be very surprised at how much the extended family looks like the extended family of the last generation. And it's amazing to me that we have become so individualistic in our thinking that we've distanced ourselves from the extended family approach.
But I mean, let's before we go off on that, because that's going to take us way off our subject.
That's no, because that's very important to the understanding of femininity. Because the
But
Western
hold on,
view of
don't.
okay,
I want to we'll put a pin there. I just want to defend this point, and
okay.
the basic point is this: I just dispute the idea that there is some large, authentic Afrocentrism inherent in our bloodline, especially as it redounds to the idea and the concept of matriarchy. Because when I go to Africa now, ain't no matriarchies going on now. So,
So I
that ain't
think,
Belgium's fault. That's not France's fault.
well, okay, so I think maybe how you and I perceive matriarchy is very different.
Okay, explain matriarchy then.
Um, because I don't think that it's I think you're defining it more as a political context, and I'm defining it more as in a um a family context.
Explain it.
Okay. So within the family, the woman is very central to the structure of how the family is run, and I stand by that
Is
as
that different?
Afrocentric.
And that's different there than it is in any culture.
In some ways, yes.
Is there a culture
Because it's the
period where
mindset. It's the
what
mindset.
hold on, I gotta ask a question.
Okay.
Is there a culture period under which the mother of a given family is not to whatever extent the manager of the household in general? I mean, because it sounds to me you talk about a managerial concept that the mothers of the black moms, African moms, they run the house. So if this is the case, is this different in any other culture? German mothers run the house. I'm sure French mothers run the house, and the fathers are
Not
around. You don't think so?
not so much about run the house. Yeah, they I think you're going to find the run the house piece is could can run from culture to culture.
Okay.
But the influence, because there are some cultures where the women are demanded to be silent and obedient, which is not the case per
And
se.
what African culture is that in particular not the case?
Are you kidding me?
Yes, I want you to tell me.
Do you realize that we're talking about a continent, not a city? You said
Exactly,
name the continent. Really?
exactly. I know.
So
And so
let me tell
so
you.
you
So
have
let me tell.
so you got 1,000 cultures. You have 1,000
Okay.
cultures you have reference to. I'm asking you to name the one under which, at some point in time, women have not felt that they were silent, had to be silent. Name the culture where
You have
that was not a
never met a
concept.
Senegalese woman.
Okay, so Senegal.
You have now. I will say this.
I've met Ghanaian women that'll tell me that'll make that argument for you too. I mean, I'm just trying to see where you make it, where you're getting it from.
Yeah.
I'm
Okay.
not
So
dis- I'm not disputing. I'm
and
asking
now
where.
the Congolese women are a little bit um more quiet. But they do recognize that the leverage that they have. They know how to use their leverage. They're much more quiet and genteel. Senegalese women are, if you've never met a Senegalese woman, probably the closest that you could come to that kind of demeanor would probably be maybe if you've ever met a Jamaican woman. Um, they don't have a problem with letting you know what's on their mind. They're
I would tell you that there are some Jamaican women, that most Jamaican women are very, very, very traditional in their views of gender roles.
exactly, but they're not silent.
I mean, I don't think any woman anywhere is silent.
You know what?
Even in
I think that I think
Even in Muslim cultures, I mean, they may not be talking when the dude's around, but I guarantee they talking, and I guarantee that they operating with influence somewhere. I mean, even in Islam, and I am not a proponent of Islam, but even in Islam, they they're teaching about women and how you deal with them as schizophrenic. They range from, you know, sometimes you got to beat her and knock her out, so you need to listen to her. They'll talk about how the prophet's wife influenced him in this or that decision. But this same prophet would give a determination that says, if you talk too much, sometimes you got to make her shut up. So, I mean, I just
okay, so
think
how
that
about we go skip to the Bible? Let's talk about the Bible.
what I'm saying is, I just think that these cultures, these things, are schizophrenic. We have a certain schizophrenia when it comes to talking and dealing about women in culture. We have a schizophrenia. We talk one way and we live another. Period. Any dude who'll tell you I run my household and I don't care what my woman say is a man that ain't very happy. And any woman who tell you I do what I want to do, I ain't studying what he say, is a woman that is not gonna be married for very long.
She might be married, but she's not gonna be happy.
She ain't gonna
I
be
mean,
happy.
I think the cooperation is what makes the well functioning unit.
I think if
That's
there's
just
anything distinctly Western that has been an issue, it has been the introduction of internecine battles through competition. The competing interests for power. And what happens
that's
is,
but see that's you we're headed up the same bridge.
well, stay here with me. I'm walking slow. It's a treadmill. That's all.
Mhm.
So listen. So what happens is, now black women are in a competing situation with black men in the work.
Some, not all.
Well, no, I'm just talking about natural. I'm just talking about from a cultural, no,
Okay.
from a economic
Overall,
standpoint, overall
yeah.
standpoint. If you are a business owner and you're under a mandate to hire certain minorities, and you have a black male with a set of credentials and a black woman with a set of credentials, be the same or even slightly less, you fulfill two birds,
You
one
hit that
stone.
double minority.
Yeah, yeah. So the concept is there is a competition. The reason there's a competition is because the rules are fixed, and the game has certain rules that pick winners and losers, and we have to just kind of deal with that and then go from there. And because we don't have our own business structure, we don't have men who are able to independently say that I am economically viable without the aid of someone else. And so they are in the same job market as their woman. And when she ends up making more money than him, he then feels, to whatever extent, either emasculated or grateful. And at some point in time, that gratefulness will become emasculation, because she will remind him one day in
She
some
gonna
fit of
bring it up
passion
one day.
that she makes more money. That's right.
She gonna roll her neck and point her finger, and
That's right.
she gonna
That's
give
right.
him one
That's
of
right.
these.
Exactly.
It's
So that has affected femininity.
now
Now we
now
somewhere. Now we somewhere.
now let me take that back to the Afrocentric.
21 minutes to get here. The same place. 21 minutes.
So let me take that back to the Afrocentric. So when I was working with the Congolese, um, they most of them. did something from the home if they had small children, or if their kids were in school, they may or may not work. So one of the things that we did was like a therapy class with them, right?
Uh-huh.
And we did art, and so they were, making crafts and things like that. Well, they brought their music in, right?
Uh-huh.
So one day, they're doing their thing, they're knitting and crocheting and sewing, and they're like jamming, like this song is on, but they doing their thing. So I'm like, okay, what is this song about? Like I'm trying to figure out. This is y'all. This is like they're Beyonce. They jamming, right?
Twerk, twerk, girl, shake it loose.
No, 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 no. African women. No, 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 no.
Oh, African
That,
women. Oh, my bad. Oops.
yeah, African women. No, 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 no. Now they can dance. Now, believe that some African women can dance. But now here's the thing. So they're doing this and they're listening to their music. So I asked them for a translation of the song. So every one of them that could speak like a little bit of English, just like chimed, like this is like they were excited to tell me about their song, right?
Okay.
So they're like, and this is, they name the artist and they tell me who she is and they tell me that she is popular and she's, all of this in Africa. So I'm like, okay, so what is this song that y'all are loving? And the song, as they explained it to me, is that she is talking about her husband, and she's saying that, her husband is a businessman and he's looking good and he's making money and he is successful. But all the other women in his here are telling her husband, you don't need her for a wife because you're too good for her. You're in such a good status in society. You make such good money, right?
They never say that here in America. They never say that.
So this culture of all of these other women who are telling her husband, oh man, you need a better woman, I can be a better woman to you. And she's singing and she's saying, but what they don't know is I help him be ready every day to be the great man that he is, that
Okay.
I am what helps him to be prepared to be so successful. I
Right.
encourage him. I make sure his clothes are right. I make sure
Right.
his needs are met and he's not
Right.
hungry. So when he goes out into the world, he is prepared to be successful. And I encourage him and I cheer him on and I help him be the man. And none of those women would do what I do. They only want to feed off of what I made. And
Wait,
they're like,
that's amazing. Where this song
that's
from
like
again?
their anthem. I have it written down somewhere.
You need,
And
you,
I was,
you need to post that on your Facebook page. Make it the new hit.
it's in some language. It's maybe Swahili or
It
something.
can't be Swahili. That's not a real language, but I hear you. It's not. It's not. Go ahead. It's like Yiddish. Go ahead. Go ahead. Go ahead. Go ahead. Go ahead. Stop making that look. You hate when I just say it out loud, huh? Like when I just say the truth out loud. Like, hey, that
I
can't be
mean,
right.
you just can't stay on
I'm
task.
on task. We good. We doing
So
good.
so here's the thing. I realized in that moment
Uh-huh.
that like this is why these are my people, because
Okay.
I don't really fit in with this compete with your man, uh, this thing that I see so much. It doesn't make sense to me. Like yesterday I had a conversation with a woman and she was like, I don't need no man to open the door for me. I can open the door for myself. And
Mm.
I said, chivalry is not about what you
Cold.
can and can't do for yourself.
Chivalry is
It's
cold.
about what you don't have to do for yourself.
I agree. I agree.
I can change the oil in the car. I don't have to. I don't want to. Why would you want to do that? I don't, and I think that's what the liberated whatever has created, was this sense of, you're saying I'm incapable. I don't think that's the tone of chivalry. Is not about being incapable.
Back
The
up. Back up.
tone,
Back up.
okay,
Because I'm agreeing with you, and I want to say that
but
it is not. No, no. It's not chivalry that's talking. It is the feminist movement that says, these dudes doing this for you, it means you're incapable. That's the problem with things. The problem with these perspectives is it makes women internalize everything as a personal slight. Everything is not a personal. If he opens the door for you, sister, that's not a personal slight. He's not saying you can't open the door. He's saying, allow me to. You know,
I
and I don't even like the word allow, but it's a whole different story.
Well, not even just allow me to, but I would be honored to.
Right. But it's but
I
but, but
think that's
it's
more
a,
the
they take what is an honor and make it a personal slight.
well, and in doing that, and I can't speak as a man, so I'll let you do that. In
Thank you.
doing
I
that,
can do that.
they send a message to men about their rightful place.
Whatever that means.
Well, to me, it's saying to men, I don't want you to do what men do. I don't want you to step up. Because if you don't want a man to do what a man does, at some point he'd be like, well, never mind, then I'll go do something else. And then when he's sitting up with Xbox all day, you want to be mad at him.
Because he will be
Just
sitting up
saying.
there. I mean, you know, we do
Just
have a lot of
saying.
baby boys.
Excellent. If you need to really follow this process through, watch the movie Baby Boy.
I mean, I really hate that movie
It
for a
is
number
it's
of
almost a
reasons,
training piece.
but it's the truth
Um,
in some ways.
that and Boys in the Hood.
Right. Well, unfortunately, those movies are from the 90s and they're still
They're
relevant now.
relevant.
And
They're
that's
absolutely
ridiculous.
relevant.
That means
They're
that means
absolutely
we
relevant.
have two generations
That we're
at least.
stalled. We're
That's right.
stalled.
That's right. We're at least 2 or 3
We're
generations
stalled.
stalled because those movies were not prophetic. They weren't talking about what's coming. They're talking about what is then, and it still is the same way now. How can Boys in the Hood be relevant now? How can Baby Boy still be relevant now? These movies are 20 years, 20 plus years old.
I went and looked for an interview with Lawrence Fishburne about Boys in the Hood, and the first statement that he makes in the interview is the message of the movie is that it takes a man to teach a boy to be a man, or
And
something to that effect.
he'll never say it today. But watch this, Mark. Watch this.
I mean, how?
Compare 20 years after Superfly and tell me how obsolete Superfly was 20 years later to 20 years at the Boys in the Hood, and tell me if we are not stagnant. You know what I'm saying? You take Superfly or even the Map, and you fast forward that thing 20 years after that, it's almost obsolete. The 1990s
Well,
don't look anything like that.
even the perception of manhood, because that's what I'm thinking. I'm like thinking of him walking down the street, because he got that little dip to his walk,
Right.
that was the thing back then. And I mean, even the pride in manhood. I mean, when you look back at the pride that black men had in their manhood,
Right. And who
um,
they were.
it just how they carried themselves, how they presented themselves. Um, I, you know, I just I think about like my dad and my uncles. They wasn't gonna let no woman take care of them. That just
Right.
wasn't.
That was
That
not,
just
and that, look, and
that was
then,
as my daddy would have said. That's not up for discussion.
right, and but watch this. Not just a woman, they won't let the government take care of her.
That's right.
Not a man. I talked to somebody
Not
one time.
another man. Not a.
That's what. Listen, I talked to somebody one time. They got mad at me. I said the one thing that would revolutionize our community is if parents made breakfast for their children instead of letting the school feed them breakfast every day. If parents made breakfast and lunch for their kids instead of letting the
You mean
school
like
feed
in the
them,
commercials?
I mean, like the way it used to be when we had self pride and we weren't looking for some folks to do stuff
You
for us.
mean like when my grandmother used to get up and make 12 dozen biscuits every morning?
Something, anything. Now we got women talking about some. I ain't got time to do all of that, and they ain't going to work. when the kids are going, they ain't going to work. They're sitting back down with the same bag on their head and the same spandex. Oh, I don't want to talk to you. I'm sorry.
Can
I
you
was about to say
not?
this. I
We're
was about to start saying the
supposed to be
truth.
talking about femininity, and I don't know if somehow we got to the bag and the spandex. Really?
Well, I mean, let's talk
I
about
mean,
femininity. Let's talk
that
about femininity. I mean,
that I
that's
mean that's necessity. That let's yeah. I think that's. I just would like for you not to like take us all the way
I'm
there.
what I'm saying.
I mean, it's important, but I think we got some other things about femininity and culture to get to before
Oh, I
we
agree.
can unpack that. Because if we unpack that too early, it doesn't. It just it's like water off a duck's back.
Well, I agree, but I really think that and this may make some people upset, but I really think that if we did little
I
things
think you've already done that.
for our if we do little things that for our children, so they understood who we were as parents. If we made the breakfast for them, if we fed them more often, not look for the schools to feed them, not look for a summer lunch program because the schools got to feed them, but if we took more responsibility for the kids instead of talking about what
Can
we ain't got
okay?
time to do.
Can I? I need to go before that. I need to go before that.
Go ahead.
If women sit down and hold their babies,
Uh oh.
there are contraptions that swing the baby that sound like a mother's heartbeat and all of this jazz.
Uh oh.
It does not replace sitting down and loving on your baby.
Uh oh. You said it,
I,
not me. You said it.
you know what? Come for me. Come for me. I'm good. And it's just um when you take away from what God created the woman to do in her household, for her to compete in the marketplace, it definitely causes a shift. It causes a shift. I don't know if my thing has stopped or not. Can you? I don't know if you can. Can you still hear me? I think we may have lost David's connection. I'm not sure here. Well, hopefully we'll get him back. Somebody probably called him on the phone or something. Let's see if we can find him and return him to our conversation here. Um, let's see if we can get him back on here. He's saying he's still here, so let's see if we can get him back.
Yeah,
There we go.
we must have been on something big because they decided to jump in and grab me.
just cut.
The government tried to jump in and ruin our viewership. Cause
Yeah, because we don't want women holding their babies and teaching people how to be humane and loving.
or how to just be responsible in general. Listen, there's a whole industry that depends on us being dependent. There are people who want us to stay where we are because we vote for them based on that. There's folks that don't want you to be successful because you would damage their voting apparatus.
Well,
There's
not
just
even just
tools.
their voting apparatus, their entire apparatus.
It's the whole economic plan, exactly. I,
That was something that I was talking. I think it was in the scholars, the Kojic scholars
mm,
group, and that was I don't know, but it was one of those groups that I was talking about um the black economy. You know what? I think it was the Black Thought. I think that was the Black Thought group. It wasn't the
mm.
Kojic scholars. It was the Black Thought group, and I was talking about the economic independence and how every time we get to a certain point in that there are these stops and stalls. um
We
but
don't
how all of
we
that
don't want
affects
economic independence.
femininity.
Well, that's true. We need to stay on topic, right? Stay on topic. Well, here,
Yes, because I do think at some point we need to do a show on black capitalism.
don't get me started with that one. And
But
I'm with
that's
that.
another day. No,
Yeah,
that's another
that's
day.
right. That's not this
Cause,
series of shows.
cause
That's not this
we're
series of
trying to
shows.
be on a task right now
Right? We're talking
that
about femininity and masculinity. That's where our focus is right now.
yeah.
All I'm saying is this, Marva. There is nothing. Women are taught now against their own instincts. They're taught that it's not
I agree.
natural. It is not natural. Just because a man says it doesn't mean it's natural for you to nurture your baby. Even though you are given by nature the ability to nurture your child, to feed your child. But nature gives you that ability. And
And women are angry at that ability.
oh
That's
God,
and
that's crazy.
I was talking to just for anybody who really doesn't know, because sincerely, I wish I could teach like some young women's classes on like preparing for having a child. But
Mm-hmm.
I was talking to somebody and they were like, the baby has gas all the time and da 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 da. And I said, the baby needs warm milk. No, warm milk is nasty. I said, no, warm milk is not nasty. No, the baby. I mean, like we going back and forth. And I said, okay, let's start with God. And she looked at me like, what? I said, what temperature did God plan for the baby to drink milk at? And she was like, I don't know. I said, 98.6 degrees.
98.6 degrees.
And she was like, how do you know that? I
Because
said,
that's
because before there was a bottle, before there was a store with the formula,
say it, Missy
God
Word.
made a woman to feed her baby.
Amen.
And her body is equipped for that. And a body
Amen.
temperature is 98.6
Six
degrees.
degrees.
I said, and let me double down on that. I said, a lot of the allergies that children have now is because they're not nursed.
Mm.
Because when they're not nursed, they're not getting small doses of the food that the mother eats. And even these vegan mothers, their children are not going to have the same immune system because they're not eating a spectrum of foods. Because the mother's body is the first introduction to foods, and kids don't have allergies when they are nursed if the
Mm,
mother
mm,
is
mm.
eating those foods. I said the culture has been built to make us dependent on that God already really resolved.
Mm-hmm.
And of course, this was so over her head because all she knew was she needed some gas drops for the baby.
Right.
And so then the next thing I was like, you got to bump the baby. And she was like, what do you mean bump the baby? I
Mm,
said, get a rag,
mm,
put the
mm,
baby right here. I said,
mm.
because the other thing that your physical body does is it makes a comfortable place for the baby to get all of that air out of the system and the baby will sleep. And she's like, I don't do all of that. I said, that's why
Mm,
your
mm,
baby got
mm.
gas. I mean, they just,
That's because we've been raising more twerkers than mothers.
grandmothers. Our grandmothers trying to twerk now.
I don't want to hear. I know. I heard.
Because see, if the if the
But his grandma
grandmothers
ain't but
appreciate,
35.
you know what? If grandmothers, right, if because grandma didn't listen to her grandma, and so there you go. But when you have a system that that women are not able to hear
Right.
other women, where they're not learning
Right.
those things about how to sit up and help your baby relax, so the baby be like, I put him in the sling, he didn't go to sleep.
Right.
Hold your baby.
Exactly.
Make sure your baby doesn't have gas, make sure your baby is full, make sure your baby's diaper's clean, and hold your baby, I promise you, your baby will go to sleep.
Now here's the problem, Marva. Everything we're saying is true. We have not talked about the characteristic of femininity. We've been talking about the makeup of a woman. So now here comes a bomb. Is there a difference, or are we being told that there's a difference between the makeup of a woman and what it means to be female?
I think we are.
Hmm.
I think we are.
Build on it. Talk about it some more.
Because that's become the problem.
Okay.
um I don't have time to really unpack body theology,
Okay.
but body theology becomes a part of it, because if you notice, when women want to not be identified as feminine, what's the first thing they do?
Cut the hair.
I ain't gonna say cut their hair, because I cut my hair. I'm
I'm
trying
talking
to
about
trying to
off.
not.
I'm
I
talking about
cut my
off, man.
I cut my hair off too
When'd you go
now.
bald headed, Marvin? When'd you do that?
Well, remember part of when we were in Atlanta, I went to like the low. I had the
Oh
low.
man.
You don't
Well,
remember that?
that explains a whole lot that they were saying then, Marvin. I'm joking.
See, that's how rumors get started. That's how rumors get started.
Trust me, I know. I'm messing with you, Marvin. I'm messing with you.
But no, now that's now let me tell you, contrary to popular belief,
Say it, Marvin.
men like that low haircut. Don't
Well,
play. Don't play. Because it says to them, or this is what I have been told. I don't know. But it said to men were telling me that it said to them that I was not going to be difficult to deal with because I was afraid of messing up my hair. And I mean that's obviously a man thing. I don't know what that.
I'm not even going into that. I'm not
See,
even trying
you
to
went
explore
there,
that.
but now you want to go another angle.
Yeah, we're going
But
somewhere else. So I'm not even exploring that.
but so in the midst of what it means to be a woman and it means to be, but what I was saying, the piece that I was bringing up, the first thing that women will do is attempt to hold down their breasts and look like they don't have breasts.
Yeah, that is true. Or grow their bellies out to where they don't look like they have breasts. They look like I get so tired in Memphis. I see these 12-year-old baby-faced gangsters walking around here. You find out that they women. You know.
They do they wear things to intentionally hold their breasts down.
No,
And part of that is because they perceive what is female
right,
to be anti.
right.
I'm going to argue that they don't know how to use the gift of femininity.
I'm gonna argue that they just want to be lesbians.
But that has everything to do with not knowing how to use the gift of femininity.
Well, here's the thing with that, Marv. This. I hate to say this, but
Because
this is true.
femininity is
No,
very.
there are some women that they like women, and but they like pretty girls. They don't like dude-looking chicks. They like pretty girls, and though I agree,
That's the lipstick
whatever,
lipstick.
whatever the technical title is, what I'm saying is, as a man, I can understand someone liking a pretty woman because I can relate to that. What I can't understand is a woman
You
saying
know
she
what?
like women and she want to talk to a woman that look like a dude. I don't get that. I mean, I get it. You like women. Hey, you like pretty women. Hey, she's fine. Hey, she's right. She's fine, dog. I get that. I get that. You need to get saved, but I get that. She cute. But you sit here and go talk to a woman who look like me.
But that's the anti-femininity.
I agree.
That is the I don't like anything about that because they perceive it as being powerless.
Or they perceive it, or they have a problem with being women. It's like y'all used to say about
Because they
black
perceive it
folk
as
who don't
being
like to be black.
powerless.
Same,
Because they
same,
perceive it as being powerless.
yeah, same thing. Guys,
It's
folks
you
who,
know
who want to
what?
identify.
You just
Uh,
gotta keep going. Just
I know. I don't. Okay, I'm not gonna change the subject. You're right. I'm not gonna do
you
that.
it's some people that are actually learning a lot culturally from some people that sit up going, really? All of this is going on? Got to get out there in the trenches. If you're not doing ministry in the trenches, you have no idea what
You
goes
ain't got
on
to know
out
what's
there in the
going on out there.
trenches.
It's rough out there.
Whew. You
Well,
got to know what's out there in the trenches.
Marvin, today we had a good
We
discussion.
didn't even talk about the Moabite.
We didn't know. We didn't get around. We didn't get around to that
I
later on.
I wanted to talk about the Moabite
We just
women
we gonna have
because
to.
the Moabite women they knew how to use their femininity.
Okay. So next week,
See, I told y'all he does that.
next week we're staying on this topic, and we might not get to the Moabite women next week either, but we're
You
staying on
don't
this
really want to
topic.
go there. I
I
know,
really
right?
don't want to go there. That's a
Y'all can read in the Bible.
please don't read,
Read
don't
about
read it.
the Moab.
Don't read
Read
it.
about the Moabite
Don't
women.
read it. Don't read it.
They were a problem.
Don't read it. Don't read about it. Don't read it.
The Moabite women were a problem.
Don't read about them. Don't read about
They were a problem.
them. Yes, I agree. They were a problem. But next week we won't discuss that problem. We're going to discuss this more, this femininity, and we're going to throw in masculinity because there's a problem
I
with
was
the
going
problem
to
with
say,
men.
let's turn it around. Let's talk about generational and cultural influences on masculinity.
I'm with that. I'm with that. We're going to
So
talk
we're
about
going
the
to just,
men.
and I want to talk, you know what I also want to talk about? I want to talk about dress, body, because we have to talk about body theology.
Okay.
We've kind of went around it
We at
because
today.
one of the things that happens, especially with masculinity, is this defining of masculinity based on one or two cultures' understanding of wardrobe, and I think that's a big thing in the church.
That's a big thing in the Bible. Thou shalt not wear anything pertaining to a man. That's a big thing. Period. We'll talk
It
about it.
Let's talk about it. And
All
that
right. So
what is
next
that?
week,
Leviticus 22?
I thought it was Deuteronomy, but we'll talk about it.
Woman, it's in Leviticus somewhere, right?
Don't I guarantee we'll have it before when we put the
Next
post up
week
for
we'll
next
have
week.
our. You know what? Next week we'll know some scriptures. We'll actually talk about something from the Bible on the next week, because I don't
Hallelujah.
think we talked about anything from the Bible this week. There was a theology piece in there somewhere because
There
of God's
was.
creation of women and what
We were
women were
getting there.
created for.
We were
We
getting there.
we almost we
Almost got
almost
there. You know,
um
doing these post show reviews where we go over where we missed it. Like that really helps. That really helps people to
I
understand. You know, we're thoughtful people. We're not dumb.
Well, and I mean to really start back and going back through the comments.
Mm-hmm.
So if you watch this on a delayed basis, please go ahead and put a comment in and share, like and share, and put your comments down there, because we're going to do better about responding to your comments. We're going to be more intentional about responding to your comments. So even if you watch it on a delayed basis, give us your comments. And I think that probably brings us to the end. I have lost David again. But I'm going to go ahead and close. Everyone to have a wonderful week. And let's see. I think David is trying to get back in here again. But next week we will definitely be on there. In the meantime, please, please, please give us your comments,
Yes,
like
please
and
comment.
share,
Please
like and share.
like and
And
share, and
and
comment.
also, if you're on the move and you're not able to sit down on Facebook, you can listen to the podcast on your devices.
Yes.
It is on a delayed basis because it takes me a few days sometimes to do the technical stuff to transfer it. But if you just do a search for Theologically Analytical, that's the podcast, Theologically Analytical. Um, why
Man,
are you laughing?
because we got so many syllables. You know, you know how we like you're too smart for your own sake. Like we we couldn't come up with a catchy title. You know, like French
Well, so let
fries
me explain.
or
Yeah, so so let me explain that is I wrote a blog for a lot of years. Like a lot of years I went, because that used to be the thing, was blogging. And so I wrote a blog for a lot of years, and that was the name of my blog. It was not intended to draw people that could not spell out multiple syllables. And so it just so happens that I felt like for consistency, it made sense to keep that name. So sorry
that's
if
good.
that's a challenge to those who trouble spelling those words with all them letters. But it's theologically analytical. There's a little button on your device where you can say it and it'll figure out how to spell it for you, so
There
you can
you go.
find it.
So
Yeah.
may the Lord watch
May the Lord watch between
between
me
me
and
and
thee.
thee.
And we'll
while
have
we
our
absent.
scriptures for next week. We'll actually open the Bible and talk about some scriptures next week.
I will have my Bible right here on the treadmill next to me. I'm getting fine, baby. I'm getting fine, baby. Getting fine. Y'all see. Y'all see. I'm gonna look good.
All
I'm telling you,
right.
mother,
Y'all heard it.
I'm getting married, mother. I'm gonna look good. I'm gonna look good for at least a week. Look good.
No, I'm gonna need you to look good forever. Because if you don't look good but for a week, that's called false advertising.
I
Now,
agree. Now tell me,
now,
you gonna tell women?
now,
I bet you
you
won't tell
don't
women
want to
that.
even.
I bet
I
you won't
bet
tell
you I
women that.
will. I bet you. You forgot who I am. You know I'll tell them. You know I'll tell them. Look,
May the Lord
what
watch.
start out like you can hold out. Don't sell
Amen.
yourself to be to anybody what you cannot continue to be to that person.
Hallelujah.
Don't no false advertising.
No
Start out
false
like you can
advertising.
hold out. Whatever you do
Hallelujah.
the first time, do it till the end of time.
Lord, help me to hold out.
Get off of here. Go work out. And
All
you
right.
go remember, you're gonna continue to work out
Amen.
after you get the blessing.
Hallelujah.
Into the blessing,
Into the
years
blessing.
into the blessing.
Hi, yeah, yeah,
You
yeah,
gonna
yeah.
keep that thing. Come on now.
Speak prophetess. Speak
You
prophetess.
already know that everybody, this is not just the
Shondo.
David, anybody and everybody, be what you marketing yourself to be.
Exactly.
If
And
you marketing yourself to be something and you ain't that, that's false advertising. You get mad somebody false advertised to you, don't do it to them.
I
That's a
am
whole nother show. You know what?
I
Let me
am
get off of
trying
here.
not to be old. I'm trying not to be old, but I listen. Let me tell you this. Okay, so I got a friend of mine, Marvin. This dude, he's older than me and everything, right? This cat got completely. Yeah, he got a full head of hair like I do, completely black. His beard completely black. He
That
he he,
tears my nerves up.
he's not dying it, and I'm sitting here like, dude, I want sometimes I just want to go. I just want to walk up to him and kick him, just like my man, hey dog, buy out one time, get some gray.
He's dying it.
No, he ain't. This dude is not
He's
that kind of
50?
dude.
How old is he?
He ain't that kind of dude. I'm 43. He got me by about 2 years. 45, 46.
He he got that just for men.
This dude, he ain't that kind of dude. He one of them old
What do
country
I
dudes.
do? What do I do?
I know, Marva. May the Lord watch between me and thee while we
I
absent
know shellac when I see it.
one from another.
This is about the third benediction, y'all.
This is
We
the
out.
third one. We out. All right, y'all.
They flicking the lights in the
I
sanctuary.
know, I know.
All right, y'all. Have a good week.
Yeah, be blessed, though. Bye.
Bye.